Okay, everybody, welcome to Brighter. In the last several days, Tesla hit some major milestones. They've produced their 5 millionth car, they've installed their 50,000 superchargers, and there's some fun news we're going to cover as well. Hertz just released the ability for you to use your Tesla app to control your rental. There's now the wonderful conversation we're going to have about the different kinds of designs of cars. And of course, we're going to talk about the union as well. So we've got Larry Goldberg joining us. Larry is a regular of our show. He is an angel investor. He's founded some companies in the past and he's now retired, but he's a big investor in Tesla. Welcome, Larry. Appreciate you joining me.
Thank you, Herbert. Great to be here.
And I know that you've been traveling quite a bit, and we're going to share some news of what happened when you were just traveling just the last few days. Let's get started with this first news, which is kind of fun. So this is an announcement from Tesla North America that all Hertz rentals in the US now allow full Tesla app access. This means that you can now use keyless lock and unlock via your phone key. You can do, remotely precondition the cabin, which I do quite a bit. And you can track your charge status like you normally do. I'm going to play a video to show folks what happens here. So it looks like that person walks into the car. They just scan the QR code after you rented the Hertz rental, and there you go.
On your way.
On your way. And what's beautiful about this as well is looks like that they've also confirmed that if you enable cloud profiles in your own Tesla, if I rent a Tesla and I'm in a different city, it's going to automatically transfer all my settings. So this is amazing. And I'm sure that you got comments about this. I know you've rented a Hertz before. And also we want to talk about what does this mean for robotaxi?
Yeah, this is not trivial. This, what seems like a little piece of news is not trivial at all. I mean, I rented a Tesla. I was really bummed to find out that my app just didn't work with that Tesla at the Hertz Tesla. And it occurred to me, that's a sine qua non, that's a minimum requirement for a robotaxi. That if you have a Tesla and you want to order it on the app, you want to get into it on the app, you want the settings that you normally have for your Tesla or a Tesla to be implemented in the app, in the Tesla that you get into. So this is really the beginning of how the app is going to be used in terms of robotaxis. And it's a great sales point for Hertz. A lot of Tesla drivers, when they travel, they rent Teslas. And I saw some conversation in X just in the last week or two about somebody who rented a Hertz Tesla, was very disappointed about the lack of app utilization, returned the Tesla to Hertz, and went ahead and rented a Turo. So this is a big deal. It's a big deal for Hertz, but it's a bigger deal for Tesla, and it's pointing the way to the future.
Yeah, that I think was Dave Lee who wrote that, do better, Hertz. And then I think Elon replied back to him. So Larry, I was going to ask you, do you think though that is this like, I saw the comments and some people were saying this is great news for Tesla owners, just like you said, but wouldn't they let anybody just download an app, the Tesla app? Do you need to be a Tesla owner to be able to then use, be able to configure the use of the Hertz app? Do you think that that's a possibility?
Absolutely, because that's what's happening in Europe for the use of the superchargers. I know that the supercharger use by third-party cars will not require a Tesla app, but it won't disallow the use of a Tesla app, I don't think. So I think the Tesla app used by people who don't own a Tesla is a pretty legitimate approach, and it's going to be required for the robotaxi. So whether or not it's been implemented yet, it's going to happen.
I love it. Yeah, there's so many things that you need to think about for robotaxi to work. Reading Walter Isaacson's book, they mentioned several of them, like, the car needs to, of course, present itself. They even thought about what happens when you're trying to get into a gate in an apartment building or commercial building. You need to press the button to open the gate or to put your ticket. So they've thought it through. But it seems like a lot of things are progressing quite nicely. All right, let's
But it
some more
also
news
points
here.
one more thing about that. One thing. It also points to the opportunity of Tesla to allow or to encourage the use of the app by people who don't yet own a Tesla, who may be thinking about using a Tesla, and then having some functionality on the app for them. So, it's an important next step.
And I was going to say, if you have cloud profiles, theoretically, you are a non-Tesla owner, you rent a Hertz, you used it once. Next time you come in, you don't have to reconfigure everything. And then guess what? You're going to buy your Tesla, and you're going to have it all set up already. Interesting what might happen. Okay, so the next big news was Tesla announced that they had built their 5 millionth car, and it turned out to be the refreshed Model 3 in pearl white. Came off of Giga Shanghai, and like they do whenever they have a milestone, they take a picture with people in the factory, and there's the 5 millionth car. What was fun about this announcement, and specifically you, Larry, because I don't know if people know this, but you predicted this was going to happen before they made the announcement. So let me show to people what you did. You tweeted this out on September 15th. You said, breaking, I think. I believe that Tesla has either hit or within the next week will hit the 5 millionth car produced. You did this before any news came out. And then it looks like here, September 16th, the very next day, this week, we produce our 5 millionth car. Thank you, Tesla owners, for your ongoing support. You called it, Larry.
I did. Lucky. I mean, I track these things more in my head than I do on paper or on the computer. I mean, think like a CEO. When you invest, I mean, I've run many companies in my lifetime now, but I've financed several companies, and I always think like a CEO, and you keep these things running in your head. And I said to myself earlier, before this day, I said, we've got to be at the 5 million mark. We've got to be about there. So I did then go to the spreadsheets, and Troy Test tracks these things like nobody else. I did look at the spreadsheets from him. I did some calculations, and I think this is it. We're there. And so I tweeted this thing, and Sawyer was a bit angry with me. He said, 2 months ago I predicted this on this and such and such a date, and he did too. But so it wasn't a mystery.
I love it. I love it. And then actually, you did tell me earlier that the day that you tweeted it out, that was the day that it actually happened. It just so happened that Tesla tweeted it out the next day, taking the photo, preparing everything.
Yeah, they had to produce the photo and do the tweet. Yeah, but correct. Yeah.
So Larry, you've been on my show several times, and I think there's 3 times now that you have predicted something and it turned out to be true. Like this one was hilarious because it was right, the next day. But the other one that happened was it 3 weeks ago? I can't remember exactly. You were on the show and you said that there's no way that they're waiting on Giga Mexico because of all the delays. You said that very likely they're already doing something with some sort of test line. And you said they might even dump Mexico, which I don't think is going to happen. But you were just saying, look, you said, I know the CEO. He's very impatient of Tesla. Man. And I said, no, Larry, they're not going to do that. And then you turned out to be true. And Walter Isaacson's book, the week later, he did confirm that Tesla is now moving forward with the Gen 3 platform in Giga Texas. They'd already started that in May, and that they're going to do the Gen 3 platform in every factory. So yes, they're still going to do Mexico. Yes, they're still going to make that 100% Gen 3, but not a delay because they're already working on it. So you called that one. And I can't remember the other one that you called, but you're doing it. You're doing it. Or you're one of the best.
Think like a CEO. I mean,
think like a CEO. Yeah. And I like that this is the thing you do in your spare time. You're calculating things, and I'm like, okay. All right. So the next big milestone that happened this week was the 50,000th Tesla Supercharger was built, and of course they made it this beautiful red. And at first, when I think they announced it, they didn't say where it was located.
No, they didn't. Yeah.
And then because you're traveling, you'll tell us a little bit more about your travels, but you've been traveling across the country and you happen to be driving down the Pacific Coast. You're headed to Monterey. You had just met with Alexandra at Tesla Boomer Mama in Santa Monica, and then you read about this post, about the 50,000 supercharging post, and then he finally found the location. And what you did was you were there. You drove there right away. This is hilarious. And so you took a photo of you standing in front of the 50,000th supercharger. And there's a guy that I guess you met there, you know him,
and he took the photo. No, he took the photo
for you.
Yeah, he was right next
there
to
it
it.
is.
Just a terrific guy. And
there you are.
He moved his car so I could charge at it. He charged at it, and then in the middle of the charge, he said, "I've taken my picture. Why don't you get in there?" And I charged my car there. And I mean, as you know, I've been studying the Supercharger network very closely. Yes. I've blogged about it. I think it's a major profit center. A lot of people have poo-pooed it, but Tesla are making a very significant profit, and it's growing. And the rate of increase, I think they're going to build out another 50,000 within 12 to 16 months. I think it's going to be incredibly rapid. And by the way, the Supercharger network is the reason for Tesla's success. That foresight in building out that network, as we'll discuss in due course, was critical to the success of Tesla sales. Yes, the car is great. Yes, the car has terrific range. But every Tesla owner knows that they don't need to have range anxiety. Now, in the early days, there just weren't that many around, and you did have a limited amount of travel that you could do. But today, I mean, I'm sitting here in San Francisco, well, in the San Francisco area, driven 3,000 miles up and down and across the United States in the last 2 weeks, and I'm on my way to Yosemite and then, back to the East Coast. So I'd have done over 7,000 miles by the time I've done. Not once have I had the slightest, not even thought of range anxiety. There's always a surfeit of superchargers available, and they're quick and they're very, very convenient. It's amazing. None of the other vendors have that. And they don't have the range of the Tesla. That's why they can't sell their cars, and why Tesla can.
Yeah. So, of course, the partnership is what really kicked off kind of the realization that Tesla is going to be the leader and the dominant force. So this is another thing that you actually wrote a whole business case on Tesla Superchargers many months ago. You did this very long tweet thread about it, explaining the stats and the forecast of what's going to happen. And, many people, including myself, don't really give a lot of kind of attention to superchargers. We don't think it's going to be a big business. Just very quickly, what's your estimate of if this is going to be a real bottom line kind of contributor? Obviously, we understand the strategic reason why to do it, but you also think it's a real business, right?
What is Tesla's earnings per share going to be this year, do you think?
But some people are thinking 5 or something like that.
Well, probably less than 5. What if I told you that the Supercharger network by 2030 is going to be delivering more than $5 a share?
So, okay, that's a good way to put it. By 2030, it alone is equivalent to what we're doing today. Yeah.
That's the point. This is not a trivial business. This is a serious business. And yes, it's an enabler. Yes, it's, and it's going to enable the entire EV industry. You watch the other guys start selling EVs once EV network opens up to them. And this is in Tesla's interest. People say I'm crazy. Oh, why are you encouraging? We have to get these other guys going. We have to. It's critical. It's critical to the whole EV movement. It's critical to the whole, future of energy security. So it's very, very important, this build out. It's an enabler, but it's also a great profit center. And once Tesla establish, their own energy production with batteries and solar, sufficient to supply all the energy, and there's, the energy costs start dropping down, the earnings on the Supercharger network is great. everywhere I go, these superchargers are busy as all get out. And they're building them fast enough that there's never a wait, but they're all busy. And so they're very profitable. And one of the facts of life is that Tesla build these things at less than 40% of the cost of the competitors. So even when everybody's building them and everybody's being paid by the government to put them up, Tesla's going to be out competing them in terms of delivery of the actual energy into the car. Is going to outcompete them.
Hey there, thank you for joining me. If you can, please consider supporting this channel so I can keep it going. It's a lot of work arranging all these amazing interviews. One of the easiest ways is just to click that join button and become a member of the channel. Thank you very much. Let's get brighter. Larry, do you think that there's a chance that these supercharger stations could actually become mini electric producing, selling stations? Because they're already installing mega packs. They're already going to have, promising that they're going to have solar, like you said, and maybe they're going to generate more energy than they can need supplying just the cars. Then they can sell, these are all mini factories.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that, and I didn't tackle this in the thread that I wrote, but it is interesting. The duck curve is the famous curve that shows that the energy demand is very high, and then it drops, and it's very high depending on time of day and the demand. If you have solar producing energy for the charging network, the interesting thing is that the charging is done in a sort of contra pattern to the duck pattern, which means that Tesla will have available energy at peak hours of demand just when the charging network is not actually delivering, not requiring energy. So there is a great deal to be said for what you've just proposed. It's going to take a lot of work to figure that one out and to see how that works. But there's no doubt that if you have because of the way peak energy is charged in this country, or anywhere in the world, really, it's really difficult to figure out how much profit they're really earning. But once they've equipped these supercharger networks, which I think is the next phase with batteries and solar, I think we'll see, without doubt, them supplying energy. Surplus energy to third parties. Okay. Let's go on to the next fun topic, which is this topic about the design of cars. So this guy, Emmett Shear, he tweeted this out this morning. I've noticed this same trend whenever I look at new cars. What's caused this convergent evolution? Is it really regulatory standards? Is this kind of a hybrid SUV, some optimal point in design? So if you look at this photo here that he shared, it's interesting where, let's take a look at closer. Every car manufacturer, this is some kind of car that they've created, and they look exactly the same. Chevrolet, Dodge. I mean, it's crazy. They all have a version of a car that looks, almost you can't even tell the difference between each of them. And what's fun about this is that, Elon then tweeted back, and he said that he just tweeted one thing, which is this, the Cybertruck. And so this is one of the reasons why people look at this thing and the first reaction is they hate it, is because how can you not, when your mind says this is what a car is, that's what the design is, and then all of a sudden you see this and going, what is this? And you take you forever to break through that. But what was your thinking about this? Yeah, I've puzzled on this a while, and I think the answer is very simple. It's the CEO of Honda looks like the CEO of Toyota, and the CEO of General Motors, is exactly like. I mean, these guys start thinking in a pattern because they start modeling after each other. So GM follows Ford, Ford follows, Mercedes follows VW follows Toyota, and it's everybody thinks, And this is what Elon did to the motor industry. He just tore shreds. He tore the memory, the knowledge out of people's heads and said, start from scratch, blank piece of paper. Forget everything start with first principles. So you start with a first principle design instead of starting with the Subaru already in your mind when you're designing, an SUV, or starting with a RAV in your mind before you start designing an SUV. And so that's the key, is that these guys run their businesses, each one like the other. These guys design their cars, each one like the other. These guys engineer their car, each one like the other, because they all have the same suppliers. You can't really have a different design because, they get the same gearbox from the same gearbox supplier. They get the same engine from the same engine supplier. They get the same axles from the same axle supplier. So in the end, the cars just have to look the same because, the seats. So it's, it's kind of, they've been around for 100 years. They've been doing this for 100 years. And, the guys who work at GM today or go to Ford tomorrow, it's an incestuous business designing incestuous designs. Does that ring true?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I like it. I like what you just said there. So, we're talking about how different Tesla acts and behaves and how they, Elon is so just does things very differently. Meanwhile, as we know, with the unions, the big autos, they're falling through. They can't run their business properly. So let's talk about the union. And this is Vivek Ramaswamy who tweeted this out. He has a prediction. The big auto CEOs will soon beg Congress for larger EV subsidies. And we've been reporting already that this is already happening. The government has already given, $9 billion to Ford.
$9 billion.
Yeah, this was a couple months ago. And then just recently, they announced a $15.5 billion, of which $2 billion is the grant, giveaway money. And then the other $13 billion is to support the union. So they're going to, beg Congress for more EV subsidies. And they're going to say, hey, there's higher costs because of the union strike as their justification. Then they're going to point to Elon Musk as their boogeyman. And really, they just needed to run their companies more efficiently and compete, but they can't. They're going to die, and they're just going to start blaming fingers everywhere. Of course, Elon liked that tweet. And then Gene Munster wrote this out. He basically was doing his calculations, and he said that after the UAW strike wraps up, it's already the fourth day, it's already wrapped up, it's more clear that Tesla is going to be the winner. So he wants to warn you. There's lots of numbers. So this is what he calculated. If Ford says that for the union to get what they want, the labor cost will double. So his estimate is $136 per year. That's all in. And last week he was thinking it was going to be closer to $80 per hour, but it could go up as high as $136.
I wonder if I could get one of those jobs.
No, I think this is it's still a lot, but I think this includes, like, your total package includes pension plans, inflation protection, profit sharing.
$136 an hour. I'll take the job.
It says he now believes it's going to land at $105, a 64% increase from pre-strike levels. That's a huge increase. Okay. So what will happen is that will make Tesla's labor costs will be 48% lower than the big three.
Actually, he's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Person for person, the rate will be $48 lower.
30% lower. Mm-hmm.
48% lower. But Tesla uses significantly less manpower per car to build per car.
Yes.
So it's actually much worse than he posits.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. So and then he does say that Tesla's employees will probably get a 15% increase in the next 6 months. Even when that happens, this is what's going to happen. Tesla's going to emerge with a cost structure 30% below the big three. Initially, he thought now it's going to be 48% below the big three. So he just showed the numbers that fully loaded hourly wage at the big three is going to $64. Tesla's 47%, $47, and it's a 27% cost advantage. But after, in 6 months, it's going to be $105 versus $55, which is 48%. This is fully loaded comparison. So
My
huge
spidey
advantage.
sense, my spidey sense tells me it's better than 60%.
Yeah. What do you think?
This is a terrible, terrible comparison. I mean, terrible for the auto companies. And we do know that Tesla, I think the most frequently used word in Walter's book on Elon is delete.
Mm.
I think he must be, I want to count the number of deletes and I'll do that he has, because every chapter, Elon is demanding his engineers to delete parts, delete parts, delete parts, delete parts. Well, if you delete parts, you also delete the labor necessary to put the parts in.
Mm-hmm.
There was a great breakdown video, and I need to track it down for you, but there's a great video of a breakdown company, one of these companies that break cars down to get the costs in. And they showed you how the Tesla front end and rear end is installed onto the Tesla. One man, no tools, puts this entire front end together, and then goes to the back of the car, puts the entire back end of the car together. This is at a show, at a auto show. And he says it takes 4 men, many tools, many bolts. There were actually 2 bolts, many bolts. He says something like 48 bolts or 60 bolts, something like that, to put a standard car together. So you've got so many fewer parts, therefore so much less labor per car, and you've got this huge $48 an hour disparity in wages. How the car company is going to compete? How? It bothers me, because it's very important that there are other winners. Because believe me, the Chinese are as astute in manufacturing as Tesla is. So we have to smarten up, and striking is not the solution. Striking, unfortunately, is not the solution, and I don't think big labor unions is the solution. I think it's the curse.
Yeah,
By the way, sorry, Herbert, just one other thought. You mentioned the $9 billion that Ford got for this investment. Do you know that they haven't paid back the loan from 2008?
Right.
I mean, come on. Let's have some equity. Let's have some justice in this country. Let's have some. Anyway, sorry.
I remember that story, and I just read it as well very recently. I think it might have been from Walter Isaacson's book. They have not paid it back since 2008. But meanwhile, Tesla did it within a couple of years. They paid off the interest rate, and yet people think that they were bailed out or something like that. But yeah, I mean, this focus on cost reduction by Tesla, it's not something I don't even know if the Chinese manufacturers can do this, copy them, because they're just so far ahead. You talked about the plug and play. Then they're going to do the next gen platform, which is even more plug and play, and then they're going to have robots coming in. They're designing the factory from in and out. It's all, and then they're building these factories already. So even if another fast copier comes along, it's going to still take 2, 3, 5 years for them to catch up. And by then, Tesla's got their costs even further. You'll just never be able to catch up. They're continuing to bring down the cost. And at some point, the game, it's already there, right? We're already at parity.
Yeah, look, there's one element here that Tesla needs to get busy on, and really reflects, I think, some of the negative aspects of Elon rather than the positive. I mean, all the deleting of the parts and the labor and the manufacturing is inspired by him, is driven by him. But the one thing he does drive is he's very slow to develop new product. He's been very focused on the robotaxi. He's held back in delivering new product. I heard him, and I've opined before about, how he's worried about other car companies can do 3, 4, 5 cars at a time. And, Tesla can only do one at a time. That's the area they could pick up in. They really need to cover the full TAM, robotaxi or no robotaxi. He thinks it's going to be this year. It's not going to be this year. It's not even going to be next year. It's going to be in 2 to 3 years' time. I think it's going to be there. But he has to unleash the dogs. He has to let more models be developed.
Okay. Oh, boy. Very interesting. So thank you so much, Larry. Appreciate this. We covered some important topics and some fun topics too. Thank you for covering with me. Appreciate you, Larry. Folks, follow him at Tesla Larry on Twitter or X now. And he'll be on the show again next week or the following weeks. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.